Did you know that 54% of Americans think they're middle class? That means if you walked into a room of 10 people, 5 or 6 of them would define themselves as being middle class. So today, we're breaking down exactly which income levels define each class from lower to upper, but more importantly, I'll show you some financial strategies that can help you level up. Because if you don't know where you stand, you can't figure out where you're going. Before we jump in, do me one quick favor. Hit that like and subscribe button so you don't miss a single upload. It really helps the channel and it helps you too, because each week I drop strategies that can help change the direction of your financial life. And remember, I'm not a financial advisor and this is not personalized financial advice. Where you land on the economic ladder isn't just about your paycheck. It depends on things like family size, where you live, and the cost of living in your area. According to federal guidelines, the poverty level for 2025 is $15,650 for an individual and $32,150 for a family of 4. Typically, households earning less than twice that amount are considered low income. But here's where it gets messy. Low income doesn't mean the same thing for everyone. Those numbers apply to most of the 48 mainland states. However, income limits are higher in certain states like Hawaii and California, where everything from groceries to rent typically costs more. Different programs and agencies also have their own definitions and cutoffs. So depending on which policy you're looking at, you might qualify as low income in one system, but middle class in another. Now remember, your income bracket is not your worth, it's just your starting point. Plenty of people have started from working class families and worked their way to financial freedom. At this level, you're often living paycheck to paycheck, maybe even paycheck to halfway through the week. Research shows around 40% of Americans can't cover a $1,000 emergency without borrowing or selling something. So if that's you, you're not alone. Here's how you can handle it. First, work on building an emergency fund, even if it's small. I know for some people that can feel impossible when you're using every dollar just to survive. But if you can find a way to save even $20 a week, that would add up to more than $1,000 in a year, which could give you some breathing room if you had an emergency. Second, negotiate everything. Your phone bill, your insurance, and believe it or not, even your rent can sometimes be on the table. And third, focus on income growth. You likely can't save your way to wealth when you're at a low income level, so you want to assess your skills or see what you could learn, like a trade, and use those skills to boost your earning power. For example, I know someone who went from making $750 every 2 weeks as a cashier to making over $70,000 a year as an electrician, all through a paid apprentice program. No student loans, no degree, just skill. Many people are told that college is the only path to success, but there are many trades and certifications that can out-earn some degrees, and usually with way less debt. So if you're currently low income, I suggest you focus on stability and skill, because skill is a solid currency. Similar to low class, middle class income in the US can look completely different depending on where you live. What feels comfortable in Kansas might barely cover rent in California. But according to the Pew Research Center, the broad definition of middle class is earning between 2/3 and double the national median income. As of 2022 data, this suggests a range of about $56,600 to $169,800 for households. Those specific 2025 estimates would place the range roughly from $41,392 to $124,176. So if your household income falls in this range, congratulations, you are the true middle class. But don't get too comfortable. Being middle class doesn't necessarily mean that you're financially secure. When you're at the middle class income level, life starts to shift from surviving to actually having options. You may finally have the breathing room to pay down debt, build a savings cushion, invest, or even take that long overdue vacation. It's a point of relative stability where things feel a little more comfortable and you're not constantly worrying about the next bill. But that comfort can also be deceptive. If you're not intentional, it's easy to fall into the trap of lifestyle inflation and complacency, staying stuck instead of using this stage as a launch pad to true financial freedom. See, the middle class can be a mindset as much as it's an income bracket, and the biggest trap here is getting comfortable with potential mediocrity.
Great kid, don't get cocky.
Here's some steps to help you reach the next level. First, if you can, max out your 401k, especially if your employer offers a match. That's free money. Second, look into investing outside your 401k. Do some research and then open a brokerage account, maybe with Fidelity, Vanguard, or Schwab. Usually a good place to start is with index funds. Even $250 a month invested consistently could grow into a small fortune in 25 years. Third, upgrade your network. A popular self-help quote says, "The 5 people you spend the most time with determines your mindset, your habits, and often your income." If everyone you know is living paycheck to paycheck, then guess what feels normal? Living paycheck to paycheck. Try connecting with people who talk about assets, not just expenses. At this level, I recommend focusing on expansion, letting your money and your mindset grow beyond survival and comfort. Quick pause. If you're getting value from this breakdown so far, hit that like button right now and subscribe to the channel. It tells YouTube that this video is worth showing to more people, and it helps me keep bringing you free wealth strategies every week. All right, back to it. Let's move up the ladder. There isn't an exact line that separates the middle class from the upper middle class. It's more of a granite than a hard cutoff. But if you want to sit near the top 20% of that range, you need to earn roughly $117,000 to $153,000 per year as a household. And depending on your location, some sources say the upper limit can be as high as $250,000. This group usually has a strong financial footing. They could be homeowners, have decent investments, and maybe a newer car that doesn't sound like it's begging for mercy. For them, it's easier to get to a place where they can say, life is good. But taxes are going to be one of your biggest enemies. At this level, your biggest expense might not be your mortgage. It could also be the IRS. So you've got to start playing defense as much as you can. Max out tax advantage accounts like your 401k, your IRA, your HSA, and 529 if you have kids. Work on building multiple streams of income. Think investments, rental income, side businesses, or consulting gigs. It's not just about making more. You want to be smart with your money and your opportunities. Your goal here is optimization. Finally, the upper class. If you're in the top 10% of earners in the US, you're probably pulling in more than $200,000 a year. And if you want to hit the top 1%, depending on where you live, you're looking at around $500,000 or more. At this point, you're probably not worried about survival. You're likely more focused on preservation and legacy. You probably have assets, investments, and maybe even a team managing it all. The key here is structure. Building a comprehensive wealth management plan that could include things like tax optimization, estate planning, and long-term philanthropy. And if you've made it here, one of the key investments you should think about is educating your family. Wealth typically dies in 3 generations because people inherit money without inheriting the information to manage it properly. You've got to pass on that mindset, not just the money. If you're lucky, your focus at this level should be legacy and building wealth that outlives you. So now you know where you stand financially. But the truth is, these income brackets don't define you. They just describe your starting line. If you're in the lower brackets, focus on building skills and stability. If you're in the middle, your mission is to scale and invest. And if you're in the upper class, your goal is to preserve and pass on. But no matter where you are, the formula never changes. Learn, earn, and reinvest. And remember, mobility in America isn't easy, but it is possible. Every ladder starts with the first rung. Now, I want to hear from you. Drop a comment and tell me which class you're in and what move you're making next. And before you head out, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel and share this with someone who needs to hear it. Most people are just one strategy away from changing their entire financial life.